Settle. I might need the remote to this, just in case it be too loud. I might need a remote. You know where it's at?
No, I'm about to find it.
It's on the black drum on the desk.
All right.
Pen holder. Yes, that's the book. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So tonight, inshallah, is the second class from the book of Salat, Kitab al-Salat. And I think I skipped over last week some basics, assuming. What phone is that? Somebody draw loud. Some basics I assumed everybody knew. But just so we clear on the book that we're using tonight for this class. The book is Zad al-Mustaqni'. Zad al-Mustaqni', which is authored by Abu Najah Musa al-Hajjawi. And he's from the scholars of the madhab of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah. So we spoke about fiqh already. And fiqh has 4 schools of thought, as we say, 4 famous schools of thought. This is the school of thought, the madhab, on the madhab of Imam Ahmad, the Hanbali madhab, which again doesn't mean what we hear in this book, doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. Okay? But this is a way. This is one of the ways. So you might read another book and it says a little something different in different sections. Fine. This is one way to do it. The author, rahimahullah, he died in the year 968 Hijri, on the Hijri calendar. On the Islamic calendar, the year 968, right? We know what year it is now? 1446. We're in the year now on the Islamic calendar, 1446. It's the first month of 1446. He died in the year 968 Hijri, the author of the book. The book that's in the bookstores is an explanation of what we're reading by Sheikh Salih Fawzan. Okay? If you have that, or if you have the PDF, we're using the metan of the book, the actual text of the book, not the explanation of Sheikh Salih Fawzan, hafidhullah. We're only using the actual text of the author, which is a lot shorter than if we were to read the explanation from Sheikh Salih. So if you have the PDF, it's like tonight is page 171. That's right, Sheikh. Yeah, I find it. I think it's 171. Yes, the chapter on Athan Iqamah. 180 if you had a PDF. Kitab al-Salat starts at 171, but tonight, if you had a PDF, it's on 180. If you have that PDF, you'll notice on the side, it's the metan that I'm reading from is in bold print, and then what's not in bold print is the explanation from Sheikh Salih Fawzan, hafidhullah. So, just so we all clear on the book that we're using, Zad al-Mustaqni', which is, and I'll do this real quick. Ibn Qudamah rahimahullah, Ibn Qudamah al-Maqdisi rahimahullah, one of the famous scholars. He wrote 4 books of fiqh, right? He wrote 4, and they're all on different levels. He wrote, if we use like high school or college terms, he wrote a 9th grade level, right? Umdat al-Fiqh, a very basic book like this. Then he wrote a 2nd level book, which is called, his first level book that he wrote, Ibn Qudamah, not the author of this book. The author of this book is Musa al-Hajjawi, all right? We're talking about somebody else, Ibn Qudamah rahimahullah. Ibn Qudamah wrote 4 books of fiqh. The first book is like the beginner entry level, Umdatul Fiqh, 9th grade level. The second book that Ibn Qudamah wrote rahimahullah is called Al-Muqni'. Al-Muqni'. That's the 10th grade level. Okay? Everybody with me? The third book is called Al-Iqna'. Al-Iqna'. And then the fourth book is Al-Mughni. Al-Mughni. Everybody with me? Ibn Qudamah wrote 4 books. This book is the second book, but he summarized it. So what did he do? Al-Hajjawi rahimahullah, he took the second level book of Ibn Qudamah and he summarized it. He summarized the second level book, and that second level book is called Al-Muqni'. He summarized it and he called his summarization of the book Zad al-Mustaqni'. Clear? Which is Ikhtisar al-Muqni'. All of it is on the madhab of Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal rahimahullah. If we don't know Ahmed bin Hanbal, that's another time. We can do his biography another time. But he's the last of the 4 Imams in chronological order. First is Imam Abu Hanifa, and then Imam Malik, and then Imam Shafi'i, and lastly, Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal. So this book is on the madhab of Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal rahimahullah. That's just some basic stuff we should know about the book as we continue, inshallah. So tonight, inshallah, we're going to do the chapter Bab al-Adhan wal-Iqamah. The chapter of the Adhan and the Iqamah. Question, is it a difference between the Adhan and the Iqamah? If it is, then what's the difference? Fadla.
It's shorter.
What's shorter?
The Iqamah is shorter than the Adhan.
The Iqamah is shorter than the Adhan. Okay. Sah. The Iqamah is shorter than the Adhan. The Adhan lets you know that the prayer is in, and the Iqamah lets you know that the prayer has began, that the prayer started. Tayyib.
The Adhan, when you call the Adhan, it's supposed to be a pause in the segment of the Adhan. The Iqamah is different, it's straight.
So in the Adhan, it's supposed to be a pause after every.
Like when you say Allah,
You say it slower. So you say the Adhan slower, and you say the Adhan faster. Wait, sounds like. Tayyib. You say the Adhan slower, then you would say the Iqamah. I'm sorry. Tayyib. Anybody else? You say the Adhan louder, then you would say the Iqamah. Jayyid. Anybody else? Tayyib.
Well, it's a slight difference. The Iqamah, well, the Adhan is on the Mu'adhan. The Iqamah is on the Imam. Meaning that the Mu'adhan is trusted to call the Adhan when it's time for the prayer.
Tayyib.
After that, he's instructed by the Imam or whoever is designated to lead the prayer to announce the Iqamah. So he doesn't do it on his own.
Tayyib. Tayyib. The Adhan, you ready? And I'm only doing this intentionally to show how detailed, and again, we're not even reading the sharh of the explanation of the book. We're doing how many pages? How many pages? 52 pages of detail. If we did the explanation, the next grade up would be 100 and something pages of detail. All right. The Adhan is the announcement that the time for the prayer has started. The time for the prayer. Okay. The announcement that the time of the prayer has started. It says, إعلام بدخول الوقت الصلاة بدخول وقت الصلاة أو قربه لفجر بذكر مخصوص. It's the announcement that the time for the prayer is from this point. From the point that Mu'adhin, he stands up and he says, Allahu Akbar. That means that the prayer, whatever prayer it is, has started from that point on. Everybody clear? Tayyib. And they define it saying that, of course, it's with specific words. You can't just get up there and say whatever you want to say. The specific things, specific words that have to be said for the Adhan. Tayyib. The Iqamah, the definition of the Iqamah, he says, i'lam biqiyam ila salat. The iqamah is the announcement that the prayer is about to begin. All right, now we're about to pray. When the adhan goes off, do we necessarily pray while he's calling the adhan? Do we pray as soon as the muezzin is finished calling the adhan? Do we pray? So what is the adhan for? Huh? Well, it's good. It's translated as the call to prayer. That's how it's translated, the call to prayer. But what does the adhan tell me? Huh? The prayer is the. What is it? Oh, yeah, I would like that. The prayer is in. What does that mean now? Preparation? We just did the definition, based on the definition.
The window, we know we gotta pray Salat at us. Also, at a time, Maghrib is at a time, Dhuhr is at a time. So, for example, if somebody got prayed Dhuhr and it's getting close to Asr, then they mean, all right, you missed Dhuhr. It's time for Asr. So you need to know what time.
Simplify it. Listen, use the definition. The definition.
The prayer time for that prayer has started.
The prayer time for that prayer has started. Simple. The adhan tells me, when the muezzin stands up here and say, Allahu Akbar, that means the time for Maghrib has started. That's it. When the next adhan goes off, that means what? The time for Isha has started. And if the time for Isha started, then that means the time for Maghrib, what? Is over. Every time the adhan goes off, that means whatever prayer we're talking about, okay, the time has started. That means I can now pray whatever prayer we're talking about. You can't pray the prayer before the time. So the adhan lets us know, okay, it's time to pray Dhuhr. You come into the masjid, did they call the adhan? It's Dhuhr time. You go in the masjid at 1 o'clock. They call the adhan? No. If they didn't call the adhan, that means what? It's not time to pray Dhuhr. It can't be time to pray Dhuhr until when? Until the adhan called. Once the adhan is called, now it's time to pray Dhuhr. Everybody clear? The Iqamah. The Iqamah lets you know what? And the prayer is going to be established. The prayer is about to begin, which means we about to pray now. We don't call the Iqamah and then sit around for 10 minutes. We call the Iqamah when we're about to line up and pray now. And that's connected to the Imam is ready to pray. The Imam comes wherever he is. Maybe the Imam's making wudu. It's important. It's important because we're going to get to a case of, especially when it comes to the chapter of leading the prayer, it's important to understand these basic rulings because they're going to be connected to things that come later. Adhan does not mean I have to pray right now, but it does mean what? The time is in, which means I can pray now. I can pray. I can pray now. It doesn't mean I have to pray while he's calling the adhan. I got to stand while he's calling and pray right now. As soon as he finishes the adhan, I got to pray right now. Because people are going to argue and say, well, you're supposed to pray at his earliest time. Well, what's the earliest time? He ain't even finished calling the adhan yet. As soon as he finished calling the adhan, we pray. You with me? That's the difference in the meaning between the adhan and the iqamah. He says, number one, هما فرض كفاية على الرجال المقيمين للصلوات الخمس المكتوبة. This is connected to when and who is responsible for calling the adhan. The first ruling, which is not on the paper we used last week, but it falls under one of the categories on the paper we used last week. All right. The word fard kifaya, which, does anybody know how we use this word a lot of times?
Responsibility is on a sufficient number from the people of the community, which takes the responsibility off the rest of
Sah, true. But the question is, did everybody understand that? Who didn't understand that? You didn't understand it? Tell you. 3 people. That means we need to make sure, we got to simplify it to make sure, you're right, Sheikh. We got to simplify it in wording to make sure everybody understands what that means. The adhan and the iqamah are farda kifaya. Farda kifaya. I'm going to translate it first. It's a communal obligation. That's how it might be translated in the book. A communal obligation. It's obligatory. The adhan and the iqamah are obligatory.
has to be established. Somebody in the community has to establish it. If anybody establish it, then the responsibility is lifted from everybody.
Jay.
If nobody established it, then everybody has.
Somebody has to call. When we talk about the adhan, we call it call. Somebody has to call the adhan, or sometimes some people say somebody has to make the adhan. Call the adhan, make the adhan, whatever. Somebody has to do it. If nobody does it, then we all get a sin. Everybody clear? Fardu kifaya, a communal obligation, meaning somebody from the community got to call the adhan. So brothers, when it's time to call the adhan, everybody can't step back. If everybody keeps stepping back when it's time to call the adhan, where that's going to leave us? All of us get a sin because we all scared to call the adhan? No worries, inshallah. We're going to have a workshop, just like we have a workshop for the Al-Fatiha. We're going to have a workshop, inshallah, for the brothers for the adhan and the Iqamah. So we can learn the words of the adhan and the Iqamah. We can learn what to say, what I should be doing, what it really looks like outside of the book. Tayyib. So that means they have to be done, but who? All the Muslims don't have to do it. So he specifies who. It says men. Men, which excludes who? Women and children, right? Al-Muqimin, residents. A person that is a resident, they're in their own city, which means they're not what? They're not a visitor. If I'm a visitor, then in essence, I'm traveling. So if I'm traveling, I don't have to call the adhan and the Iqamah. Everybody with me? It's a group of us traveling, 5 of us. We all drive down to DC. We drive to New York. We go to Massachusetts. It's time to pray. Listen to words. Is it obligatory in that case for us to call the adhan and the Iqamah? Huh?
I think it is, well, from what I've learned in the past.
No. Only from the text.
Only from the text.
Only from the text, y'all. From the text. According to the text, if we're traveling, we went to Massachusetts, we catching fish like crazy. It was crazy. MashaAllah. MashaAllah, it was crazy. We all traveling. We still got to pray, y'all. We having fun, but we got to pray. We Muslim. We traveling now. We take the rule in the travelers. According to the text, is it obligatory for travelers to call the adhan and the Iqamah? Not obligatory. That doesn't mean we traveling, we can't call the adhan and the Iqamah. But if we get up there, we moving around, we get off the bus, it's late, it's dark, everybody making wudu, we line up, call the Iqamah, we pray. Somebody says, yo, nobody called the adhan. How we pray nobody called the adhan? The adhan is not obligatory on the travelers. That's the point. Everybody get it? Tayyib. The adhan for the 5 daily prayers. The adhan is for the adhan, the Iqamah for the 5 daily prayers. Meaning the adhan, the Iqamah are not for the sunnah prayers. It's not for tarawih. You're not going to call the adhan, the Iqamah for Salatul Janazah. You're not going to call the adhan, the Iqamah for the Eid. Only for the 5 daily prayers. Tayyib. It's so important, the author says, yuqatil ahl al-balad tarakuhuma, that the people who agree in a place that we're not calling the adhan and the Iqamah should be fought. That those people should be fought with all of the rules connected to it. The point of even mentioning that is the seriousness of the adhan and the Iqamah and the obligation of calling it for the people who it's obligatory on. Everybody clear? Tayyib. He says, وَتَحْرُمُ أُجْرَتُهُمَا لَا رَزْقٌ مِنْ بَيْتِ الْمَالِ لِعَدْمِ الْمُطَوِّعِ. He used the word haram. What's haram mean based on last week? Haram. We know impermissible, right? But what does that equal? It's a sin and it's worth being punished. It's a punishable thing. So if somebody wants to, for example, charge you to call the adhan and the Iqamah at the masjid. They come to the masjid and say, I see y'all don't have a muadhin, right? I said, no, we don't have no muadhin. Y'all don't have nobody call the adhan. We don't have no brothers call the adhan. Well, if you pay me, just give me such and such a month, I call it. Haram. Pay attention. What am I doing? I'm charging you a fee to call the adhan and the Iqamah. It's different what the author mentions after that. Not the case if there's nobody to call the Athan Iqamah, and the Muslims, the authorities come and we offer you, as we say, a stipend to do it. Can you call the Athan Iqamah? We don't nobody to do it. We're going to give you something on top of that. We're going to make sure we give you such and such to call it. It's not the same. They don't hold those two to be the same. Everybody clear? Does everybody see the difference? I can't come and charge you. I'm not going to call if you don't pay me such and such a month. You can count me out. Right? Not that. When the other one is brothers in here, you in the masjid, you prayed all the time, and at such and such time, they see you always there. They come and say, listen, we see you always here. We're going to take from, which is Beit al-Mal, which is something that we need to be establishing. This is basically just real simple. Beit al-Mal is a pot of savings that the Muslims put away to help Muslims when they need it. Just a big, we call it account, public treasure. Good. Put some money away when Muslims need it, right? They come there and they can get it what they need. We're going to take from that public treasure money. That's for all the Muslims' benefit, for the benefit of all the Muslims. And we're going to make sure that the Athan Iqamah is called, and we're going to make sure we give you a stipend. We're going to do that. The authorities take the initiative to do that. Not the person calling the Athan comes and demands money to do it. Everybody get the difference? Yeah, Sheikh, I'm sorry. Clear? Tayyib. The next portion is the Sifatul Mu'adhin wal Adhan. Tayyib. These are the things that are recommended for the Mu'adhin. The Mu'adhin, not the Mu'azzin, because sometimes it's written in books with a Z. Mu'azzin. The caller, the one who stands here and calls the adhan when it's time to pray. The mu'adhin is the one who calls the adhan. So somebody walks up to you and says, you gonna call the adhan? Can you call the adhan? Right? In that case, you become, brother, the mu'adhin. You become the mu'adhin for that prayer. These are some of the things that are recommended for the mu'adhin. He says, وَيَكُونُ مُؤَذِّن صَيِّتًا. صَيِّتًا, he mentions three things. أَمِينًا عَالِمًا بِالْوَقْتِ. That number one, that the mu'adhin is recommended that the mu'adhin has a loud voice. A loud voice, that his voice is loud. What's the point of a loud voice? Everyone can hear you. Now let's just take the picture, y'all. There's a time when there are no microphones and no speakers. And this is important for what's coming. So what do? The person who calls the adhan for the salat, he climbs up to the top of a rooftop on the top of the masjid. And if you go to the Muslim countries and you look at we see the minarets, right? If you look at the minarets, you'll see a staircase inside of it, right? So what the mu'adhin is going to do is going to go up on top of the masjid and he's going to call the adhan, no microphone. So what's the point of the adhan? Again, let people know the salat time, whatever salat it is, the time is begin. So what are people supposed to do? Everybody going to start preparing to go to the masjid to pray. So it's recommended that the mu'adhin, whoever calls the adhan, has a loud voice. The louder the voice, the what? The more people are going to hear the call. Everybody clear? The louder the voice is, the farther the sound is going to extend, and more people want to hear the call to the prayer. That's number one. Number two, aminin, that the person who calls the adhan is trustworthy. Trustworthy, which is important because the Muslim that's calling the adhan is informing us of something that is an obligation for us to do. And it's important that the person we accept information from in Islam, the person who we accept information from, and we accept what you say, your reputation, our reputations are considered when we listen to what you say. And we spoke about that during Ramadan and when it's time to fast and when the moon is sighted, that we got to look at it. Just because a person comes in front of us and says something, they're Muslim, that don't mean that they're trustworthy. The one who calls the adhan should be trustworthy, and the details are going to come after that. He says, number three, all this is recommended. He says, aliman bil waqt, that the person who calls the adhan should be knowledgeable of the times of the prayer. Or, as they say, somebody, as long as somebody lets them know that the prayer is in this time, that's fine also. These are things that's recommended. In order to be knowledgeable of the times of the prayer, what do you have to know? No doubt. You got to know the times of the prayer. You need to know what else? The positions of the sun, how to determine what time the prayers are. Right? Imagine if we didn't have any phones, no prayer schedules and stuff like that. How to determine the times of the prayer. Even if I don't know that, somebody else knows the times of the prayer and they tell me. How many things was there? 3, right? A loud voice. What else? They trustworthy. And number 3, knowledgeable of the times of prayer. He says, what if it's 2 brothers and they all have those 3 things? They all have a loud voice. They both are trustworthy, and they all know the times of the prayers. Everybody with me? You with me? Everybody, I want to make sure we're on the same page first. We said it's recommended to have a loud voice, that you are trustworthy, and you know the time of the prayer, the times of the prayers. It's 4 or 5 brothers that all meet them requirements, right? What do? How do we determine who should call the adhan? Because number 2, it's a reward in calling the adhan. It's ejr, it's reward in calling the adhan. Somebody should look it up. It's not hard to find. All you got to do is Google the hadith for the reward of calling the adhan. He says, if 2 or more people have those requirements, right? 2 or more brothers. He said, قُدِّمْ أَفْضَلُهُمَا فِيهِ. Which one of those brothers are better? Even though they all have them, they might be on different levels as far as loud voices. One voice might be louder than the other. One brother, his reputation is a little better. One is a little more sharp in knowing the times. Everybody clear? If they equal in that, it says, أَفْضَلُهُمَا فِي دِينِهِ وَعَقْلِهِ. Who is, in our terms, whose deen is better? Let's just leave it like that. Whose deen is better? How we determine whose deen is better? How do we determine whose deen is better? Between 2 brothers who trying to call the adhan. They both want to call the adhan.
Who's been practicing Islam longer?
Who's been practicing Islam longer? Okay. What else? Who's more knowledgeable? Right? It says you look at his deen and look at his aql. Look at his thinking capacity, his intellect. Who's sharper with the brain? Not that one of them is not intelligent, but one might just be a little more educated, a little more sharper. Everybody clear? Now, for us, y'all, in order for us to even be able to practice this, what do we have to do? We got to know each other. We don't even want people to know what I know and what I don't know. So we can't really practice this. We can't really go in because we standoffish on being real about what I know and what I don't know. You see what I'm saying? And in reality, that's why we see the things we see amongst us men. I don't know, the sisters don't be able to see it, but amongst us men on the brother side, we see what we see. It's time to call the adhan. It's time to lead the salat. We're not judging by this. We're judging by how people look, how they dressed, who's more known, who's more famous. He's been Muslim longer than me. We judging by looks. We're not judging by, and then we choose that brother and he leads the salat and we complain after that. I should have just led the joint if he was going to do that. Well, if we knew each other for real, meaning we sat like we sitting now in class together, we make mistakes in front of each other, right? You get to see, mashallah, I didn't know that brother was sharp like that. He's sharp, right? That's how we get to learn each other. He says, if they're the same when it comes to their deen and their aql, their intellect, he says, "Man yakhtarahu jiran." Whoever the neighbors select. The neighbors. Because you got to figure, the adhan is going to be, you're talking about outside, people are hearing it. It's possible. Well, I'm going to ask you a question. Is it possible that people prefer to hear certain people's adhan over other people's adhan? Very possible. So if they're equal in all that, then they say, who do the neighbors want to hear? Return it back to the neighbors. These are the people who benefit from the adhan. Return it back to them, and then choose who the neighbors would prefer. If the neighbors say they both cool, then they say what's mentioned in the hadith about drawing lots. I forget what we call it. We call it like picking straws, put the name in the hat, pull a name out, something like that. If they equal in everything, that's the last thing. They equal in everything. We still don't know who to choose. We're not going to choose this brother because his thobe higher. That's not the gauge, not shoe shape. The gauge is not looks. The way he wrapped his izar is better. That's not the gauge. The gauge was mentioned here. Tayyib. The next section, the sifatul adhan. The sifatul adhan. Number one. This should be an easy one, this first one. Nobody forget this. The adhan wa khamsa ashrata jumlatan. You too. The adhan is 15 sentences. How many? 15. How many? How many sentences, you see? How many sentences is the adhan? You. 15. How many? Don't forget it. 15. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salat. Hayya ala salat. Hayya ala al-falah. Hayya ala al-falah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. Clear? How many is the adhan? 15. Everybody clear? And then you're going to go into the Iqamah. Yurattiluha ala ulu. A person should call the adhan and they're in a higher place. What's the benefit of it being in a higher place? The sound stretches and projects further. So more people hear the adhan, they know it's time to pray, they start preparing themselves and make their way to the salat. Tayyib. These things mentioned here, number one, he mentioned 7 things. These 7 things are recommended. All right. Meaning, if a person didn't do these things, it doesn't mean you have to call the adhan over. You're not going to say, man, that adhan didn't count because you didn't do number 4. All right. The first thing is that the person who calls the adhan is somewhere high. And I'm just using as it used to be, whether in one of the minarets, they might be in the minaret, right? They might be on top of the masjid. But what if a person called the adhan in the masjid? Do they got to call it over? Huh? Let me say this real quick. Does everybody know, or these things, how many of them? 7. They're recommended, okay, in the adhan, which means if I did not do these 7 things and I call the adhan, my adhan is still valid. It still counts. You don't have to come and call it again. Everybody clear? Cool. The question now is, if these 7 are recommended, and the first one is that the person should be on an elevated platform, whether you stand on top of the masjid, you get them. If a person doesn't do that, but what they do, they stand here and call the adhan in the masjid. Is the adhan valid still, or do they have to call it over? It's valid. A person's going to say, well, you're supposed to stand on something high. You're supposed to be high when you call the adhan. What's going to be your response? It's recommended to be high, but if it's not, if a person's not on an elevated platform, it's not going to invalidate the adhan. Everybody clear? That's what it means when these things are recommended to do. All right, that's number 1. Number 2, mutatahiran, that the one calling the adhan should have wudu. You should have wudu, which means if I don't have wudu and I call the adhan, is the adhan valid? The adhan is valid. So brothers, that's no longer an excuse. That's one of the excuses for the brothers. Call it then. I got to make wudu. You don't need wudu to call it then. You need wudu to pray, but you don't need wudu to call it then. Tayyib. But it's recommended that a person has wudu when they call it then. Tayyib. Number 3, mustaqbil al-qibla, facing the qibla. Facing the direction we're going to pray. Facing the direction we're going to pray is number 3 from the things that's recommended when we call the adhan. I'm not saying do this, y'all. I'm not saying do this. I'm just saying. You go in the masjid, we pray this way. You come in, the brother's facing this way, calling the adhan. Facing this way, calling the adhan. I'm not saying do that. I'm saying if he did that, would you tell him to call the adhan over? That meaning that adhan doesn't count? No, why? Because facing the adhan is facing the qibla, the way we pray, is recommended. I'm not saying you should be doing the opposite. I'm just saying if you came in the masjid and something like that happened, no need to be alarmed, because some of us might see that. We walk out the masjid, meaning we're not going to another masjid to pray. I'd rather pray, some of us. I would rather pray by myself than pray in Jama'ah because the brother did something like that. Not knowing that it's recommended to face the qibla, not obligatory, even though it's something different. And that doesn't mean when you go somewhere you're trying to turn away from the qibla, call it that, y'all. It's just a point. Number 4, ja'ilin usba'ayhi fi udhanayhi, that the one calling the adhan takes his 2 fingers and puts them in his ears. Right? You see people like this. Some people just put their hands like this, maybe for the look. Specifically putting the fingers in the ear. What does this do?
Separates any other noise from your distraction.
Jade. It keeps you from being distracted from people talking around you. People talking, you might forget the words of the adhan. What else does it do? Yes, this is old school noise cancellation. All right. When you do this, you're naturally going to speak louder. Naturally. So if you scream, am I speaking loud? If you're screaming like this, calling the adhan, naturally it's going to be louder than it would usually be. Everybody clear? So if you come in the masjid, it's a brother calling the adhan with his hands down to the side, just like this. Or brother's calling the adhan, he's like this. Allahu Akbar, Allah. He don't have his hands in his ear. Or brother's calling the adhan like this, without his hands in his ear. Without his fingers, without his fingers in his ears. Do we say, yo, you got to call the adhan over? What do we say? We don't have to say anything to him, but I understand that what is recommended. It's not going to affect the adhan. Everybody with me? Knowing these little things keeps the fitna down. Because a lot of us, we go somewhere, we see something different, everybody's wrong except for what I know, for many of us. But if we learn these small things, things become less of an issue. He didn't have his fingers in his ear. He called it adhan without his fingers in his ear. Okay, it's cool. Fingers in the ear. It's not going to invalidate the adhan. Not that he shouldn't do it, but it's not going to invalidate it. Like you got to call the adhan over. It's not to your salat is not accepted. What number was that? 4. Number 5. He says غير مستدير. غير مستدير. And he mentions this because some of the ulama hold the opinion. Some of the scholars hold the opinion that when a person calls the adhan, right, that they should make a full circle when they call in the adhan. Meaning, what's the point? What's the point of the adhan? So people can hear that the salat time started. Like, I don't have a microphone. I'm standing on the top of the masjid. I got my finger. I'm trying to reach as many people as possible, right? I'm facing the qibla, right? Because I'm facing the qibla, does that mean all of my neighbors are this way? Is the neighbors this way? If I'm going this way, are they going to hear it? They might not. So some of the scholars say when you call the adhan, you go around. So everybody gets to hear the adhan in a circle. You with me? You with me? Like the fan in a circle that you call the adhan, Allahu Akbar, and you moving your feet, going in the circle. You're going to stand up and make a whole circle as you're calling it. Some say, right? The author says, no, you don't do that. You don't have to do that. You stand there, face the qibla with your fingers in your ear, and you don't spin in a circle. That's what the point of mentioning that. If you have the PDF, what does it say in the PDF? You got it.
Says, except the movie of rooted to one spot without movement from the beginning of the event.
It says without
Without movement. Rooted to one spot without movement.
rooted to one spot. Stand meaning your feet. Don't move your feet. That's what that means. Don't make a circle. Even though some say the authors of the opinion, I know you don't have to make a circle. طيب. Number 6. ملتفتا في الحيعلة يمين وشمال. The hay'ala is حي على الصلاة and حي على الفلاح. Right? Turning to the right, حي على الصلاة, حي على الصلاة, right? And to the left, حي على الفلاح. Turning to the right and to the left when you say the حي على الصلاة, حي على الفلاح. What if a brother didn't do it? He kept his head straight the whole time he called the adhan. Then he missed a sunnah. He missed something that was recommended to do. Everybody clear? طيب. The last one, قائلا بعدهما في أذان الصبح. Saying after the adhan for Fajr, after the adhan for Fajr, the adhan for Fajr, after حي على الصلاة, حي على الفلاح, after that the adhan of Fajr, that a person says, recommended to say, as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. Salat is better, prayer is better than sleep. Which adhan is that though? Only for Fajr. That he says it twice. As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. After a person says, hayya ala salat, hayya ala salat, hayya ala al-falah, hayya ala al-falah. This is the adhan of Fajr. And the adhan of Fajr we add, is recommended to add, as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. And then we go back to the original adhan. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Yes. You got it? We clear? Tayyib. Those are the 7 things is recommended in the Sifat al-Adhan. Any questions about the Adhan? Because now you get ready to move to the Iqamah. How many sentences is the Adhan? 15. So if you forgot them, you should be able to count them up. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Right? Fadl. Who shouldn't talk?
People like who be listening to it. Like basically, if you start calling the adhan right now, all the questions are quiet.
Some people say you shouldn't talk when you hear the adhan. So the muadhin's calling the adhan that everybody should be quiet. I don't know what people mean to say when you shouldn't talk, but it's permissible. Islamically, it's no sin for a person to talk while the adhan is being called. Should you listen to the dhikr and repeat what the mu'adhin is saying? Yes. The fact that I'm talking doesn't necessarily mean I can't repeat what the mu'adhin is saying now. Everybody with me? Yes.
Are you going to get to repeat after the muadhin?
Yes. Inshallah. Tayyib. Now he moves to Sifatul Iqamah, the description of the Iqamah. The Iqamah is for what again? The prayer is about to pray. We're about to pray now. Usually, between the adhan and Iqamah, usually how long? 10, 15 minutes, depending on the prayer. What's long? Half hour is long for us. Half hour is long. Usually for Fajr. The longer wait is usually for Fajr, right? Usually 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes between the adhan and the Iqamah. Fajr might be longer. If somebody said 30 minutes, that's long. If it was over 30 minutes, the adhan was called and they didn't pray, and they're not going to pray for another hour and a half after the adhan. Everybody with me? If the adhan is called, that means the time for the prayer started. You look on the board, they say the adhan, the Iqamah, they're going to pray in an hour and a half after the adhan. Do we have an issue?
No.
It's still within the time of the salat.
I don't know if a lot of people see this, but in the city, like at work, doing whatever you're doing, you pray wherever you been, wherever you see a masjid at. And I know it's a lot of masjids. For one reason or another, they have it, like you said, on the board. Also came in at 5 o'clock, no matter what time of the year. Also at 6.
Asr's at 6.
Or Thor might have came in at 1. Thor is at 1:45.
Yes.
That didn't, for whatever reason.
Right. Now this is the question. Do we have any text, any verse, any hadith that says we have to pray 10 minutes after the adhan? 15? No. Everything that's mentioned is general. The time that it would take to do such and such, to read 50 ayat, for example. Right? So it's no necessarily, as long as we're not going into the next prayer or going into the time where we're not supposed to be praying, the prohibited time. Tayyib. So he moves to the Iqamah. The adhan is 15, right? The Iqamah. First thing we say, the Iqamah, number 1, hiya ihda ashara. The Iqamah is 11 sentences. 11 sentences. The adhan is how many? The Iqamah is the Iqamah. So the Iqamah is shorter, right? He says, yahduruha. And you say the Iqamah faster than you would say the adhan. Right? So the adhan is 15 sentences. The Iqamah is shorter. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya as-salat. Hayya as-salat. Qad as-salat. Qad as-salat. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. Was that 11? Huh? Oh, how many was that? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya as-salat. Hayya al-falah. Qad qamat as-salat. Qad qamat as-salat. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. How many? 11. The Iqamah is 11. The adhan is 15. Just so we know, y'all, the ulama differ on this. We're not getting into that. The adhan is 15 sentences. The Iqamah is 11. You might pull something up and it might be some khilaf, right? And again, if it is khilaf, then this is not the time for that. If a person called the adhan with 15, we good. And they call the Iqamah with 11, we good. That doesn't mean somebody come or you go pray at another masjid and their adhan, for example, no need to trip. Don't go say they added something that's bid'ah. Right? We know, you know that 15 is safe. If it's something different, what's on me? If I go somewhere and there's something different, what is it on me to do? Learn, ask. Not assume that what I don't know is in opposition to Islam immediately. Because I don't know, it doesn't mean it's wrong. Tayyib. So he says, number 1, that the Iqamah is to be said faster than the adhan. What was the first one? 11 sentences, yes. And then the Iqamah is said to be faster than the adhan. Yes.
The adhan is 17, though, right? Or it's still 15?
Good. The question is, let's start with the adhan is what? How many sentences? 15. For which prayers? For the 5 daily prayers. If we're talking about Fajr, then we're going to say what? It's recommended to add 2 more sentences to the adhan of Fajr. If I did do that, if I applied what is recommended to do, that will make my adhan for Fajr how many? 17. If I didn't do the recommended of saying Salatul Khayr min an-Nawm, then my adhan for Fajr is still going to be 15. Clear? Tayyib. He says, وَيُقِيمُ مَنْ أَذَّنَ فِي مَكَانِهِ إِنْ سَهُلْ. The person who calls the adhan should call the Iqamah in the same place he called the adhan if it's easy. the person who called the adhan should call the iqamah also in the same place that he called the adhan, if it's easy to do. Everybody clear? طيب. Let's just say, for example, I'm calling the adhan on the roof. The imam's ready to pray. I called the adhan on the roof. Right? It's time for the iqamah. If I call the iqamah on the roof, what's going to happen? I'm gonna get late to the prayer. I'm gonna get to the prayer late. Everybody clear? What if I can get from down there? It's easy and it's no problem. I'm not gonna get to the prayer late. Then it's no problem. It's better if you can call the adhan in the same. If you can call the iqamah in the same place you call the adhan, that's the best thing to do. If there's some difficulty in that, then there's no problem. If I don't call the iqamah in the same place that I call the adhan. Everybody clear? Because I'm only saying this because you go to some messages, right? It's a microphone for the imam, the prayer, right? Then it's a microphone further over for the mu'adhin. So the mu'adhin doesn't call the adhan and the iqamah on the microphone of the imam where the imam leads the salat. The mu'adhin calls the microphone over there, calls the adhan and the iqamah on another microphone. So every time it's time for the adhan and the iqamah, he goes over there. Everybody with me? Everybody know what that looks like? For example, y'all, for example, this microphone would be for the whoever's leading the salat, right? That microphone that's a little further over is where the mu'adhin will call the adhan, that one. He wouldn't call the adhan here, he would call it there. And the iqamah. Everybody with me? Question, do they have to do that? Everything could be called in one place, y'all. We talking about what's best as opposed to what you can do. The best thing to do, wherever you call the adhan at, call the iqamah there. If there's difficulty in that, then just call the iqamah wherever you are so we can pray. طيب. طيب. The next section, al-ahkam al-muta'alliqa bil-adhan wal-iqamah. طيب. Now, he mentioned some things that will invalidate the adhan, right? Or the iqamah. Meaning, if you do one of these things wrong, that adhan or iqamah doesn't count. It needs to be done again. All right? But the way the author worded it, he's basically saying your adhan and iqamah is fine as long as you do the following things. As long as you do the following things, your adhan and iqamah is fine. But if you don't do one of them, then the adhan and iqamah is not valid. It needs to be done again. All right? You with me, Sheikh?
Yeah.
Clear? طيب. He says, وَلَا يَصِحُّ. What did I say? What do you say? How do you translate that? You looking at it?
No.
Sheikh, what does it say? فَلَا يَصِحُّ. You looking at it?
Where?
Under,
Sequence.
it says the adhan must be in sequence. What did it say before that, though? That's it? All right, what did it say at the end of that sentence?
Sequence and succession between each sentence. Yes, ma'am.
That's it? My bad. Let me see it, John, real quick.
Okay.
Huh?
There's a little sequence.
طيب. It says in English, I'm going to read the English. Adhan must be done in sequence and in succession between each sentence. طيب. The adhan must be done like this. All right? Which means in the Arabic, la yasihhu. The adhan is not valid unless it's done like this. In the English, it says adhan must be done. Meaning the adhan or the iqamah is not valid. It doesn't count unless it's done the following way. Murattaban, in order. The words are the words that we know. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. You can't mix them up, the lines. The 15, they have to stay that standard 15 in that same order. If you keep that order there, then it's fine. If you change the order of those 15, even though you said the same 15, but they're out of the order, then the adhan doesn't count. Everybody clear? Those 15 sentences, those 11 sentences for the iqamah, the 15 for the adhan, the 11 for the iqamah, they have to be done in that order. As long as it's done in that order, the adhan is fine. Number 2, mutawaliyan, in succession. Everybody know in succession? Right after each other. No long stops, pauses, right? It's done right after each other. No stop, no long pauses like that. The adhan and the iqamah. Number 1, it has to be done. The wording has to be in order. All right. Number 2, when we say the adhan and the iqamah, it has to be done mutawaliyan, meaning flowing. It's flowing. You're not stopping, sitting back. Allahu Akbar. Salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah hayyik. Jazakallah khairan. Allahu Akbar. That's not mutawaliyan. You with me? Flowing. You stay there. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. You with me? That doesn't mean when we get to that, when we get to it. Tayyib. That was 2, right? Number 3, min adlin. From a trustworthy person. And as the scholars say, walo zahiran, a trustworthy person. What's the opposite of a trustworthy person? Huh? A person that's not trustworthy. What makes a person not trustworthy in Islam? That's a lot of things that remove that label from a person being trustworthy in Islam. Everybody with me? I'm gonna go to just flip it. They say from number 1, a fasiq, which is usually translated as a person who openly sins. The person who they don't hide it. Where do people openly sin these days? Social media. Person on social media, they be on there getting high, they on there disobeying the law. People don't even know they Muslim. They come to the masjid and they call the adhan. Everybody with me? It's a difference between the people, y'all. It's a difference. And it's not just getting high. There are other things. That can remove a person's label of being adl, being trustworthy. Okay? Everybody with me? But what if a person comes in and we don't know him? I'm not saying, we don't assume every Muslim that comes in disobeys the law on social media. We don't assume every sister we see, she disobeys. Every brother you see that you don't know, I don't really know, he must be disobeying the law. No. We don't know him, then he calls the adhan, no problem. But the people that you know Islamically are not considered to be trustworthy. These people, they're not deening, they out there, they really, as we say in our words, they really out there, right? These people shouldn't be calling the adhan or the iqamah. Tayyib. The adhan is valid. How many was that? 3, right? As long as it's in order, the words are in order. It's done flowing in succession, right? No long, crazy pauses. It's from a trustworthy person or a person we don't know what their situation is, right? As far as their obedience to Allah. The adhan is even valid, walau mulahhanan. Even if a person recites the adhan or the iqamah, and I'm going to use the word, they said melodious, and it sounds like they're singing it. In the book, it says melodious. They put like it sounds like they're singing the adhan. It's still valid, the word and stuff. Even if they do it like that, that doesn't mean it's wrong and you got to call it over, right? It has a melody to it. The fact that he called the adhan with a melody doesn't mean it's wrong. Doesn't mean it has to be done again. Tayyib. It says, oh, malhunan. Even if the brother calling the adhan pronounces something and he makes a mistake in his pronunciation. If he makes a mistake in his pronunciation, as long as what he's saying, as long as he said it incorrectly, right? But as long as what he's saying didn't change the meaning of the adhan or the iqamah, then it's valid. If he says something and it changes the meaning, that's a different situation. Well, how would you know? How would a person know if the mistake changed the meaning or not? Number 1, you have to know what? Arabic. Number 2, you have to know what? Grammar. You need to know the Arab, grammar and stuff like that. If you don't know that, it could be a person, he's your favorite mu'adhin. You make a lot of mistakes though. Why? Because the listener doesn't know Arabic, and the listener doesn't hear the mistake because they don't know the language. You with me?
So let's say if somebody say Sila, like that's a weapon, right? Like they say Hayya ala Sila, they say hurry to the weapon. The person might not hear that. And they don't know, right? They don't know Arabic. They wouldn't know.
Yes. Yes. Assuming, this is important, y'all. Assuming that that's what the person did. Assuming that's what they did. And I'm going to say this like this intentionally. Because I know some Arabic words don't mean I understand Arabic. Because I know some Arabic words doesn't mean I understand grammar, Arabic grammar. Because I can read Arabic doesn't necessarily mean I understand what I'm reading. You with me? So I might hear some words, and to the person, that don't sound like a mistake. Right? I'm just saying for us. But there's people in the room that I know Arabic. They ain't say nothing. What should I do? Huh? Fall back. And at the bare minimum, I should do what? Ask the people who I know understand the Arabic. That makes sense? We are called Jordan. We like, yo, that was a mistake. Yo, you got people like, come on, Sheikh. You got people here. You, with all due respect, you know what I'm saying? We have people here more Islamically educated than you in a nice way. Why you jump the gun instead of checking with the people who are there instead of you jumping up to say something? Or you don't think that they would say something if it was a mistake? You with me? Yes.
All right, question.
Follow.
All right. I understand that checking with the people first. I'm not negating.
Yes.
Because you can hear the mistake.
Mm.
Maybe somebody didn't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that knowledge didn't reach them.
Yes.
Okay. Because a person might hear the adhan,
Mm-hmm.
and that person was taught not only how to call the adhan, but also was made aware of some common mistakes that are made in the adhan that change the meaning.
Tell you.
So, like you said, from hikmah, you know, it's more knowledgeable. People say, "Excuse me, did you hear what he said?"
Right.
You know, he said such and such and such and such.
Sahih.
Doesn't that change the meaning?
Sahih.
Because there's a common mistake that people make when they call the adhan. That's really common and it changes the meaning. When a person says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar,
Mm-hmm.
and also it's also Ashhadu anna. It's a way to say Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Instead of saying Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, you change the meaning and say I am the messenger of Allah. It's two common mistakes that people make.
As long as
Allahu Akbar,
this is the most important thing. A person correcting the person, whoever's the corrector, that's not a word, but whoever's doing the correcting, it's on you to be sure that it was a mistake made. That's all.
Yeah.
However you get to that, however you get to it. Because like he's saying, it could be people more knowledgeable there and maybe they missed it. But the better chain of command for us is to go check with the people. Did you hear that? You might say, no, I didn't hear what he said. He said that. So he said that? You know what I'm saying? Fuck him.
And I'm asking, what would you do in this situation?
Uh-huh.
In a situation where somebody is adding a wow in front of Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah.
Mm.
Would you stop that person? Or is that like you
If somebody added a wow
a wow?
in front of, in the Athan or the Iqamah, what I would do, knowing is difference of opinion amongst the ulama, and the wording of the Athan and the Iqamah is check the differences first. See if there are other narrations with a wow. Right? I don't know. Maybe it's another narration with the wow. I never heard that, but just because I never heard it don't mean it's wrong. Knowing is khilaf, the ulama differ on the wording of the Athan and Iqamah. Check if I'm at that point. Check the difference of opinion now. Now, if it comes up that nobody mentions a while, all right, now we got some time. Now we can do some correcting. You feel what I'm saying? You with me? Inshallah. Tayyib. He says, well, usually min mumayyiz, and the adhan or the iqamah is valid from the mumayyiz, which is what? What do you got? Is it, that's how you translate it? A child, that ain't good enough. A child ain't good. That's not a child. A child is not precise enough, though. The child is able to distinguish good and bad. We spoke about the mumayyiz, right? What's the age of that? 7. Puberty, 15. If the child reaches 15, for sure they reach puberty. But when is a child mumayyiz? They can do till 7, right? That has to do with commanding them to pray when they turn 7. Tayyib. Before 7, your son is 5, right? I'm sure he learned the adhan. Alhamdulillah. When it comes to the 5 daily prayers, he shouldn't be calling the adhan for the 5 daily prayers, not a 5-year-old. But from a 7-year-old and up, no problem. That's the mumayyiz. The mumayyiz, the age of tamyiz begins at 7. Like the hadith, command your children to pray at 7, and then hit them or beat them at 10, right? That age of 7 is the age of tamyiz, mumayyiz. They say the child knows right from wrong at that point. He says that the adhan is valid from the child that is mumayyiz. طيب. ويبطلهما فصل كثير ويسير محرم. 2 things break your adhan or your iqamah. 2 things are going to invalidate the adhan and the iqamah. Number 1, a long pause of silence, right? Number 2, yasirul muharram. A person calls the adhan, they say Allahu Akbar, like salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahu Akbar. That doesn't break the adhan, right? Everybody with me? The mu'adhin speaking in between what he's saying doesn't necessarily break or invalidate the adhan. Everybody clear? Somebody's gonna call the adhan here. He might be by himself. Somebody comes through here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The mu'adhin says, wa salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ashhadu an la, and continues. That doesn't invalidate the adhan. But what does invalidate the adhan when the mu'adhin talks is yasiru muharram, to say something haram while he's calling the adhan. Why would the mu'adhin say something haram while he's calling the adhan? And this is real possible where we live at.
You might see an insect or a mouse might run across the way. You might say something.
He might be calling the adhan or the iqamah, and an insect run by him and he say something he's not supposed to say in the masjid. Maybe. Tayyib. I'm gonna just use the example that's used in the books. He might call it the adhan, and in the middle of the adhan he backbites somebody. Mid adhan. That's possible here. Unfortunately. What'd that look like? Allahu Akbar. He shot out. We'll continue on. Right? Is that far-fetched? That ain't far-fetched, unfortunately. But that's going to break the adhan. Backbiting. Lying in between. So speaking, the mu'adhin speaking doesn't necessarily invalidate the adhan, but the mu'adhin saying, Inni yasirul muharram. Anything haram in between is going to invalidate the adhan. What time is the adhan? We got 2 minutes. The last thing, we'll stop here, just in case any questions. He says, وَلَا يُجْزِئُ قَبْلَ الْوَقْتِ. The adhan is not valid before its time. It's not going to count. You call the adhan before it's time for the adhan, that adhan doesn't count. You need to call it again. When we get to the times of the prayers, we can really, inshallah, nail down the times, get the times all the way down. A person calls the adhan before its time, that adhan doesn't count. And if that adhan doesn't count, what do? Just call it again. Say, dang, I called it too early. Our argument is going to be, it just went off on my phone. Now where we going from here? That's just a.
It's doing the weather.
It's on the muezzin, yeah.
Still on board?
We do that after we finish. I'm gonna just finish it. Huh? It's always better. Yeah. It's better. Hold on, let's finish this sentence. Tell you. It doesn't count. The adhan doesn't count before the time of the prayer except for the adhan for Fajr in the middle of the night, after the middle of the night. If we don't know, Salat al-Fajr has 2 adhans. One adhan is earlier. It's not time to pray Fajr. Right? After half of the night is gone. When I first got to Saudi, we was in Mecca. When I first got there, they used to call 2 adhans for Fajr. Adhan like in the middle of the night. Some people praying Qiyam al-Layl. They might want to lay down and get some rest before Fajr. Some people will sleep. They might want to get up and pray Qiyam al-Layl before Fajr. That's the adhan. It's not Fajr time though. That adhan is before the actual time of Fajr. Other than that, all the adhans must be called when it's time to pray. When it's time to pray. Everybody clear? Meaning that first adhan for Fajr, it wasn't adhan, it was called, the muezzin called it, but it wasn't time to pray. So that first adhan for Salat al-Fajr, for example, for us, somebody calls the adhan right now, Fajr 4 in a little bit. Right now, somebody calls the adhan, you hear the adhan going off at 2:30 in the morning. A person calling. That's not the adhan, it's time to get up and pray Fajr. But maybe you were up praying the night prayer. You might want to lay down and take an hour nap before Fajr. Or maybe a person's trying to get up, a person gets up, or whatever the case may be. But that adhan for Fajr, that first one is not the adhan for the Salat. And we can stop there unless there's any questions. Wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam being Muhammad.
What time do you Isha prayer like go out?
We're going to get there when we do the times in the Shurut al-Salat. One of the first ones is the prayer times, inshallah. But that's going to take some detail, inshallah.
See if 2 brothers praying, like at work or something, you gotta call the name. One gonna call the name.
If 2 brothers are at work praying, and the Salat comes in, do they have to call the adhan? Huh? I think I missed the detail. I missed the detail based on that question. Who says yes? Who says no? Who says I don't know? No? Who says no? Who says yes? Raise your hand if you say yes, brothers. 2 brothers at work praying. It's time to pray. Do they have to call the adhan? Yes? No, do they have to? Obligatory to call the adhan? Yes? Who says no? All right, if you say yes, why? Like, if it's more than one person, what does that mean? Huh? Jade. How many is a good? How many is a congregation? 2 or 3? 3. The Jama'ah is 3. So when the author says, I don't know how he translated it, it may say, what does it say there? In the Arabic, it says, Fard kifaya ala rijal. Ar-rijal. Ar-rijal in Arabic is 3 or more. 3 or more. How you translate it though? Which meaning, and if we going by it, then 2 or more, no. But if it's 3 or more, then yes. You with me? If you're at home, does that apply when you're at home with your family? What's the rules? Men, residents, 3 or more men, rijal, residents, they're not travelers, for the 5 daily prayers. Don't matter where you're at. The adhan is not restricted to the masjid. I messed it up. Hold up. Oh, here we go. The adhan is not restricted to the masjid. The adhan is connected to entrance of the salat time. It says, this is important. In the book, it says, both are fard kifaya, communal obligation, upon resident men for the obligatory prayers in English. Tell you, resident men is how many in English? Huh?
Oh, resident?
Men. Men is a plural in English. How many? 2 or more in English. We're not going by English. We're going by Arabic. In Arabic, a rijal is 3 or more. Plural in Arabic is 3 or more. So if it's 2, no. If it's 3, then we apply it. Clear? But the problem is in the translation, it just says men. A person gonna see that and they might say, well, it's 2 of us. 1 is a man, 2 is men, 3 is men. But in Arabic, it's different. The plural doesn't start till we get to 3.
Is that specific to males or men?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Hey,
So I'm praying with 2 11-year-olds, both males.
Okay.
Would they be considered men or would they considered males?
A sabi is well, you answered your own question.
They didn't reach puberty, so they.
That's not necessarily true. It may be 11, but you don't know if they reach.
All right, maybe you didn't. The words are distinguishable in Arabic, and a lot of times they're not in English. So the word for those children would not be rijal. You feel what I'm saying?
Let's say,
It would be sabi.
okay, let's say 2 males that didn't reach puberty. A man and 2 males that reach puberty. So that would consider 3 men.
A man,
And 2 males that have reached puberty. So basically 2 15-year-olds, 2 16-year-olds, and a grown man. Would that be considered 3 men?
yes. He reached puberty as a man, right? If he didn't reach puberty, he's not a man. Doesn't mean he's not a male. He's a male, but he's not in the category of the men. Number one, if he didn't reach puberty, it's not even obligatory to pray. And for those people, it's not obligatory to pray. It's a lot of rules that don't apply to them, which doesn't mean they can't pray with us. It doesn't mean we don't teach them. But what it means is when it comes to the ruling coming down on them, it's not going to apply to them because of the age bracket they're in. If that makes sense. We got 3 age brackets, basically. We got from birth up until 7. They're not responsible. Even if they call the adhan, it doesn't even count. Then we got from 7, which is mumayyiz. 7 until puberty. All from 7 until puberty, none of the prayers are obligatory until they reach puberty. Now, if they reach puberty at 11, now the prayers are obligatory at 11. If they don't reach puberty till 14, then the prayers are obligatory at 14. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be praying while they're 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're talking about the obligation. The obligation is attached when they reach puberty. That clear?
You in a house with your family.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I got to finish the 3rd category. From 1 to 7. From 7 until, and everything after puberty. Everything after puberty is obligatory. A person is mukallaf. They're obligated. They're held responsible. Before puberty, they're not held responsible. But if they did some actions of worship, it would be counted for them as recommended. The 5-year-olds and the 4-year-olds, even if they do it, it's not going to count for them. But that doesn't mean we don't teach them.
So going back to the question, that the adhan should be pronounced. That's the case.
What's the case?
If it's 3 males, 3 men.
For sure, yes. Further.
Like you in the house with your family of 5 and your wife, the adhan should be called.
I'm sorry?
You in the house with your family of 5, everybody puberty or whatever the case might be.
No, listen. Use what you have. You don't, at this point, you don't need me. You feel me? The ilm, the knowledge gives you legs to stand on. You got your own tools. How many men do I need for it to be obligatory to call the adhan? 3 men. Is it 3 men in the house? Yeah. We only going off the text, y'all. We only going off what we read, what we going through here. You can apply it to whatever house you go in. You feel what I'm saying? That's what everybody, all the men. Now look at all the men. Are they all travelers or what? What we doing? Right? Who? You apply all the stuff yourself. Worst case scenario, if you call the adhan, it's not going to hurt anything. We're not trying to leave the adhan off. You know what I'm saying? We're not trying to not call it. You know what I'm saying? But the question is, well, when is it big? When you're looking at the people, this gives you the ability to look. Okay, such and such. He's 4, he's 5. It's just me. Now you might tell him to call the Iqamah to test them. You might just call the Iqamah, line some kids up behind you and pray. But you understand, okay, if I got 3 men, we're all residents, we're not traveling, somebody need to call it then. You can apply it. All right? Because if we don't do it like that, if we don't use this and apply the principle, everybody, we can come up with 1,000 different scenarios, and you don't have time to do that. You apply the scenario, try to apply it to the situation to see how it comes out. If you're stuck, then we discuss it. Is any questions from the sisters before we stop? I don't know. Oh, they ain't got the mic.
She says yes.
Yeah. Oh, she put a paper over there? My bad. What happens if my son doesn't know, but he's old enough to lead prayer? If he doesn't know the prayer, but he's old enough to lead the prayer. Is the question, do you pray behind him? If that's the question, you don't pray behind a person who doesn't know the prayer. If he doesn't know the prayer, number one, he needs to learn the prayer. And I know, sisters, I know it's great for your son to lead you in salat. It's great. But number one, the salat al-jama'ah is not obligatory on women in the first place, right? So for your son to lead you in prayer is a plus. That's icing on the cake. If he has to pray by himself because he doesn't know, you can't have somebody, you know how to pray, and you put somebody in front of you who doesn't know how to pray to lead you in the prayer. You can't do that. The person who leads the prayer is supposed to be the most what? The most knowledgeable of the rules of the salat and everything, right? According to the hadith, everything in the hadith of the Prophet. So you can't go against that because it's your son, and he old enough, and he's old enough, but he's not ready based on his knowledge. He doesn't have the knowledge to do it. So you should not put him in front of you to lead you in a non-obligatory prayer or in a voluntary prayer if he doesn't know. It's better to teach him how to pray or make sure he learns how to pray. And then, inshallah, if Allah makes it easy, he can lead you in the salat, because that is something beautiful for a child to be able to lead their parents in the salat, especially for a sister. And she might not be married and she wants to be led in the prayer. She want to pray Tarawih in the house, or she want to pray whatever, and she wants her son to lead her, but he needs to know how to make the salat, inshallah. And we'll stop there so we can pray, inshallah. Wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam. What, man, that joint